Relax and prepare to be whisked away to the edge of existence and beyond. Consider death with a perspective of the hereafter. That happened to Christian and hardworking technician John. John had a near-death experience and met Jesus while fishing in the Brazos River in June. At that time, he saw how God views deceased spirits. He saw the compassion and kindness of those who had committed their life to serving others and the callousness and selfishness of others who placed themselves first. On his return to earth, John welcomed his second chance and dedicated himself to helping others. This touching narrative recounts John's life-changing near-death experience. One summer, my dad said he was fishing the Brazos River while on vacation. I begged to join him to splash around in the water while he cast his line. My 4 neighbors were invited. After packing into Dad's car, we headed to the river. After falling into the water, we moved 30 to 40 yards from Dad's fishing spot. Dad told us to follow him down the bank an hour into our game since he was going upstream. As we waded upstream, 5 kids could swim, including me. While waddling upstream with the gang, I stepped into a hole and slipped in, falling 10 yards behind. Everything happened so fast, I couldn't recover my breath before fainting. I struggled to the surface, gulping water. I started spewing water as soon as I touched the surface, but I never had time to collect my breath before plunging again. I arose and started spewing water again, but I went back under the waves before I could catch my breath. This happened several times since I was exhausted and out of breath. I was irritated with myself for not breathing sufficiently while floating over the sea. Everything slowed down after I quit fighting out of exhaustion. My movements felt extremely slow, as in movies or TV. I realized my legs and arms were worthless since they moved slowly. I emerged from my body. Seeing my fighting body made being in 2 places no longer an issue. I was physically on the ground and mentally in the air. From where I stood, I saw my body writhing in the water but did not feel it. I climbed higher till I was 10 feet over the water. Despite my effort underneath the sea, I felt no exhaustion or agony and was relieved to be above it all. A luminous globe appeared around 20 feet away. It hung brightly at eye level while I contemplated my situation. It emitted bright light and spun like smoke in its own confines. It was basketball-sized. A tiny black dot appeared amid the brightness. That dot had my whole attention. As I watched, it swelled until it was as big as me. Then Jesus walked out and stood before me. I promptly gestured for him to stop by raising my defensive hands. Because he was holy and innocent, I felt undeserving of his company. The depravity of this world infected me as a mortal. As he touched me, guilt and unworthiness vanished. He stood majestically before me with a golden glow everywhere and a luscious complexion. I saw his glorious light in all its splendor, even though human eyes cannot see its speed. Just over 186,000 miles per second. I cannot express his wonderful brilliance. This light was visible and seemed to give me spiritual energy. From this light, Jesus' love, knowledge, and grace shined everywhere and seemed to reach into my being. When I looked down, my body was snow white. He was before me with the long hair and beard seen in 2,000-year-old art and drawings. He spoke to me, but I don't recall what. She was told to relax and not worry. His voice was powerful and musical. I've been deaf since birth and have trouble hearing and speaking. I had trouble attending and succeeding in class. My hearing loss made it impossible for me to communicate with teachers and classmates and pass grade-level assessments. Jesus always spoke clearly and concisely to me. His voice was sweet and musical. We both had trouble moving our mouths when we spoke. It appeared we could communicate via ESP. Another strange incident happened when I tried to talk to him. He heard me before I could speak. He spoke to me as soon as I had a thought, so I felt like he could read my mind. This was our communication method throughout. We saw a large screen appear. This huge screen reminded me of drive-in movies. Because he and I were close, the screen was huge. This screen replayed countless scenes from my brief earthly life. The screen showed many scenes. I felt like my life was being recorded there. No connection was made between scenes, which were exhibited in random order. Numerous accounts say our lives are blurred when we die. I experienced this. A scene grew to nearly fill the screen when Jesus pointed to it, but I could see additional situations on the periphery of the one we were discussing. He questioned me about the plot as we watched. I was questioned about lying to my mom, jerking my sister's hair, throwing rocks at my dog, and yanking my neighbor's cattail. In our screening, I lied, tormented, mocked, and tore someone's clothes for no reason. He pointed out my biggest mistakes or best performances in every scene. He made me explain my behavior in each scene as we discussed them. He stopped me when I tried to downplay my actions by adding spin to my comments. I knew I had messed up in several cases. His compliments were lavish when I did something nice in a scene. Jesus laughed out loud and was thrilled when he witnessed something funny. His comedy was unmatched. I won considerably fewer scenes than I lost. It was clear that my relationship with him was unpleasant, and I suddenly feared damnation. He suddenly grabbed my hand. Through a tunnel, we gravitated rapidly. The tunnel's walls, ceiling, and floor appeared to be churning like denser smoke around a fire. When you're speeding down a road, immobile objects like trees and electricity lines blur. Despite not knowing the tunnel was moving, the walls, ceiling, and floor seemed to be spinning around me. I can only say that Genesis Firmament best describes the walls, ceiling, and floor. As I studied the tunnel features, I realized how quickly time was passing. A distant light was visible ahead. Thus, we're finally getting there. I had left by then. My pal gently caressed my foot while swimming beneath me. Submerged again, I was in the water. As I tried again to surface from the sea, I gasped for oxygen. Our friend dived under me to swim between my legs, then hauled me to the surface and started swimming back toward the coast. As I gasped for oxygen, I tasted the best air ever. I could tell he was struggling as we swam a short distance. I realized I would drown him if I kept dragging him down. I sank into the water after sliding one leg over him. He panted when my feet touched the stream. Both of us passed out on the coast after reaching it. I vomited river water I swallowed while battling. I kept vomiting because my stomach was distended from drinking so much water. After 10 or 15 water vomitings, I dry-heaved again. Every inch of my body hurt from the pain. The fight drained my muscles, and the excess water, long heaving, and vomiting stretched my stomach. I hurt for 2 weeks. After a long day, my dad took us home to relax. I forgot about Jesus and the tunnel. While reflecting on the occurrence in the days and weeks that followed, my life seemed to blur. Parts of a newspaper article about a near-death incident 30 years later brought back memories. After some thought, I realized that I had post-traumatic stress disorder due to the shock that left me unable to recall the events. I found the answer after weeks and months of thinking. Don't miss a woman's next near-death experience that will blow your mind and give you new perspective.